Greetings, citizens, and welcome back to the Hidden Dagger Inn. My name is ILLPeonU, but you can just call me Peon. In today's episode, we're discussing every aspect on if PvE players need to be concerned as law-abiding citizens, and will the corruption systems in place be enough to avoid a gank box? So without further ado, let's get started. Before we delve into intrepid strategies to maintain the game's PvX nature rather than focusing solely on PvP, it's essential to discuss the corruption system. First, we're going to let you hear this clip from Steven so you can hear what he's saying firsthand about PvP and how he envisions it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when and how players encounter PvP. The majority of PvP that players will encounter, the vast majority, will be through consensual systems, meaning opt-in systems like sieges, like caravans, like wars, these, or going out into the open sea. These are conscious decisions that players will make, knowing the risk potential, the risk profile, assessing that, and they will opt into those things. But as we discussed with the open world flagging system, there is a possibility that players will contest dungeons or contest raids that you and your friends might be a part of. And that's a decision point to a degree as well, because as I said, most players won't go red. The vast majority of players will not go red given the risk, and not just risk, but what is risk, right? Risk is the potential of failure, the potential of loss. And there's many scales of failure. But going red or gaining corruption not only has risk associated, it also has a cost. And that cost is a defined cost. There's a known value to that cost. You raise your cumulative PK score, which increases the future corruption that you might gain, which dampens skill efficacy in combat when you are corrupt. You gain 4 times the death penalties when dying as red. You can't trade your gear or interact with vendors and NPCs or store gear inside of a storage chest while you're red. So it mitigates the potential you have to potentially safely get rid of that corruption. In addition, you have now the potential to drop equipped items and gears if you are corrupt. So it's almost certainly a negative return on the investment of going corrupt. And as a result, very many players will not engage with the system. But again, it's a fine line between keeping risk there while deterring griefing.
I'm not going to explore deeply into the workings of the corruption system, as this information is readily accessible. Briefly, players are categorized as green, non-combatants, purple, combatants, and red, corrupted. Typically, green players are those that are not seeking any conflict. They are focused on completing their quest and collecting their resources and following the yellow brick road. On the other hand, a purple player is someone who actively opts into PvP as he has attacked a green player, taking on the risks that come with such a decision. Those risks are including the potential for death penalties and item damage, along with losing some resources in your normal stat dampening. Engaging as a combatant involves transitioning from green status by initiating combat in a sanctioned and legitimate manner. Despite these risks, it prompts the question: what motivates a player to become a combatant or purple when the stakes are high and the fair fights are definitely not guaranteed? From a personal perspective, I prefer to maintain my green status, concentrating on leveling. However, should I encounter a corrupted red player, they will be targeted immediately with extreme prejudice. An interesting scenario to consider is encountering another player, perhaps at your favorite preferred farming location, who decides to attack, thus becoming a combatant, and putting you at a disadvantage. Would you retaliate? Or would you allow them the chance to potentially overstepping their damage, as they won't have a precise account of your health bar, and become corrupted? Moreover, consider the dynamics when a player or a group constantly harasses you to take over your farming spot without directly killing you, thereby disrupting your activities. While some may view this as griefing, I see it as a legitimate strategy, one that might prompt me to call my guild for support immediately. Now, regarding players who become excessively aggressive and attack defenseless green players, they become targets for retribution. These corrupted players can be attacked by anyone, including green players, without changing their own status. The severity of their actions, such as attacking a much lower level player or accumulating multiple offenses, influences their corruption score. This score not only reduces the effectiveness of their abilities, but also imposes a significant experience debt to the tune of 4 times the debt if they die. In extreme cases, such as players causing widespread destruction, their likelihood of dropping valuable weapons and armor increases. I would like you to take a second and envision yourself in those scenarios I previously mentioned, and I invite your thoughts on these dynamics in comments below. How do you navigate these complex interactions, and what strategies do you employ when faced with potential corruption or aggression in the game? To ensure the integrity and deter corruption within the system, Steven has introduced the concept of bounty hunters. This role is not simply handed out. Aspirants must complete a specific quest. This quest is likely available only to citizens of military nodes at Stage 4, as well as potentially their vassals or affiliated nodes. Once an individual earns the prestigious title of bounty hunter, they then can proceed to their local tavern, perhaps the Hidden Dagger Inn, and check the bounty boards there. Here you will find a list of assailants who you were tasked to track down, ushering in a dynamic strategic element to the gameplay. Upon accepting a bounty, bounty hunters can activate their pathfinding ability. This ability is invaluable as it helps reveal the locations of the corrupted players, allowing the bounty hunter to efficiently track down and apprehend targets. The progression and effectiveness of the bounty hunter are enhanced as they gain experience, a feature that can be showcased in the next clip.
Revealed to bounty hunters due to corruption. Is your exact location revealed, or only your general area? This is going to depend on the advancement within the bounty hunter class, so to speak, not class, but like progression path. Your progression within that is going to determine how localized, how specific the location counter is. So like if you're a noob at the bounty hunter thing, you just came in, and, you may get a bigger blob area of where this person is. If you are like an expert bounty hunter, you may get really specific locations.
Pinpoint,
yeah, exactly.
And that's something also we're going to have to balance.
This progression system adds depth and reward to the role, making it both challenging and fulfilling. As hunters embark on their missions, one might recall the famous phrase from a popular culture movie, "May the odds be ever in your favor," underscoring the perilous yet thrilling nature of these tasks. As you pursue these obstructors of justice, it is likely that the only safe haven they know is their own homes, which in fact a bounty hunter cannot enter. This choice, however, would confine them to a rather mundane existence. More commonly, you will find them attempting to offset their experience debt at well-known farming locations. Given that they will avoid popular grinding areas where they are at risk of being eliminated on sight, they are more likely to gather in lesser-known locales, frequented by other corrupted players for mutual safety. Exercise caution in these areas, as their abilities to dampen stats will not affect a bounty hunter, nor will they incur additional corruption from attacking you, even if their assault results in your pile of ashes. Additionally, I can see many corrupted players going out to the sea, where I believe many will go to seek refuge. Not only are they shielded from other corrupted individuals at sea, but also people who are less favoritive towards law enforcement figures. And to those shady individuals, you, sir, are fair game to everyone in the open waters. If you are tracking targets at sea, consider assembling a team of bounty hunters. However, be mindful that currently only the one who deals the final blow receives the credit for the elimination. Please note that this rule is under review and may change during Alpha 2 testing. Should you successfully neutralize the aforementioned adversary, your career as a bounty hunter will be significantly advanced. Achieving success may even position you for the esteemed node government title of Chief Bounty Hunter.
Chief Bounty Hunter.
Steven's strategy focuses on maintaining a player versus player PvP interactions with the organic system loops he has created, such as caravans, guild and node wars, castles, and maritime engagement. With that being said, the system offers players a chance to seek retribution or capitalize on opportunities, such as acquiring valuable loot observed in the possession of others. You know, that mage that just blinked over there and stole your mithril. However, if you succeed, there will be consequences for your action, so make sure it's worth it. It is conceivable that one might find the cause to deviate from a straight path. For instance, if you were insulted or deprived of valuable resources right before your eyes, it might ignite a fervent desire to address these grievances. Engaging in such actions, while they may invite penalties, also upholds a personal sense of justice and response to said provocations. As numerous players enter this game and more find out and learn about it, and also the ones that have already expressed concerns about players versus player interaction and are uncertain whether it will enhance their gaming experience. However, let me assure you that organized PvP is exhilarating when experienced as envisioned by Steven. For those apprehensive, joining a guild can significantly enrich your experience. In this regard, I highly recommend checking out Overlord, a guild I've proudly been a part of for over 2 years. We had a significant presence during Alpha 1 and are planning an even larger involvement in Alpha 2. Our goal is to rank as one of the top guilds on our server and achieve mini server first. For those interested, I will include the link to our Discord below. Another big reason to be part of a guild is be aware that during dungeon exploration and raids, players can encounter attacks from other players, especially near the bosses at the end of the dungeons or during a world boss fight.
Can you be jumped? Is there times there'll be instants and or people will be locked out of it?
For the most part, if there are bosses at the end of dungeons, it is possible for you to get jumped. But I'll kind of explain, what the intent there is. So back in the day, circa 2003, I was playing Lineage, right? And this is one of the main experiences that I had about open dungeons as a concept in MMORPGs. Lineage 2, I'll give you an example. There was this great dungeon back when I played Lineage 2. It was called Antheris' Lair or Dragon Valley Cave, DVC, I think it was. And you enter this dungeon, and around the beginning, the opening rooms of this dungeon, you'd walk in, there was a main corridor, you could turn left or right, you could go forward. If you turned right, you knew that's going to take you down to the donut area, the Python pit, and you'd eventually have this bridge you'd go over, and you'd enter into Antheris' Lair, which was the giant boss that you could teleport it to after you got to the heart. And it was always cool because when I would go in there with a party and stuff, and we'd be fighting, the early rooms, they were a little lower level, right? Lower level monsters, and then as you went deeper, you get higher level monsters until you got really more difficult monsters. So you kind of had an ecosystem of players that were present in this open dungeon. It wasn't, this is if I was lower level and I was in the opening rooms and I saw this party run by, and I'd be like, oh, that's the archer on that server that was killing a bunch of people at the last castle siege. It's what's up, man? And you get to say hi to them or whatever, and they run by, go to their little spot, and they're like, don't talk to me, pleb, or whatever. That interaction of just having people commingle in an area of an open dungeon is I think a cool experience, right? So that's why I like the open aspect of it. And if a raid came through and they were going to go to the boss, you'd have an opportunity to be like, oh, I want to join in on that, even though I'm not necessarily part of the raid. Group, do you want to leave our hunting ground and just go see what's going on and experience this fight together? I'm yeah, let's go do that. We can experience that. And then if you had rivals that were no, we want to stop them. Well, then what you'd have to do as the raid who is trying to complete the boss is you would try to secretly organize together at some location nearby, so it wasn't seen by other people and they could shout it out or tell the enemy alliance or whatever. And then you'd run in all together and try to get there before the opposing team has time to get together, unless they had spies or something, right? And then by the time they're trying to run down the dungeon, they're training all the mobs and they're dying left and right. Some of their party members are dying. They have to resurrect them, and it's it's a rush to how can they reach you and start interfering with your fight potentially so that you don't down the boss, and they have a time to get their alliance together to try to compete with us then for this boss. That whole interaction, I think, is just a set. It is a unique risk to boss engagements.
Most raid groups are likely to defend themselves to protect their loot. However, I was thinking it is possible for the defending raid not to fight back, forcing the aggressors to go corrupt. This dynamic could particularly be interesting depending on the severity of stat dampening after death, although possibly foregoing their loot, adding an intriguing layer to the strategy. Moreover, if defeated players can return quickly into the fray, they may be able to not only get the boss, but retaliate against the now red corrupted players that first killed them, securing the loot from the dragon or boss and from the corrupted players. This possibility adds exciting dynamic to the game, one that has me eagerly anticipating the strategic depth it will bring. Furthermore, the importance of a proficient scouting team cannot be overstated. Guilds that effectively utilize scouts tend to dominate the servers. Embracing this strategy is crucial for any guild aiming to be the top. Returning to the PvP aspect, if you're still worried about being ganked relentlessly by corrupted players, have no fear. Steven is fully aware of how players in the past have operated, and if their system is working like a gank box and not as intended, they will address it to where it works as it was intended to.
And you covered a bit of this just now, but one of the things that has come up in the discussion about this topic is other games have flagging and corruption systems, but they still have issues with users griefing each other. How is our flagging system and corruption system going to deter that?
Well, in a majority of cases, the experiences that I've had where the corruption system doesn't accurately address the potential for griefing is when the system has essentially failure points where the corrupt players can create a PK alt, right? That has the ability to be logged in or logged out at a location where you're protecting, let's say, the hunting ground. And you have the ability to support the PK alt through healing, and you might not flag by doing so. The alt has the same level of damage output and has no risk of loss there. We address that by having the skill dampening so that that PK alt is ineffective in PvP and doesn't have the ability to kill. You can return fire against a red target and not, go purple so that you're a valid target for PvP. The red targets will have to continue to accrue that negative corruption if they wish to defend themselves. There's a logout timer assigned for players who have corruption that's very significant. And even if they force disconnect their client during that time, it still persists in the world. There's the potential to drop your armor and gear, as we discussed. There's 4 times the death penalties that are accrued through negative experience that's gained, which means that even in the negative experience, it also applies potential skill dampeners and keeps them from accruing normal experience as well. There is an added, these are all things that I've changed in the system that help to safeguard some of those loopholes. Now, of course, as we said, we can't and we don't want to 100% remove the ability for that risk to be alive, for that risk to be realized. But what we do want to do is make sure that those occasions are few and infrequent and are not the majority of a player experience, let's say, in the open world. And we do so by incorporating all of those risks and costs into a decision to gain corruption and PK another player in the open world. It's just not going to be done often. And that is my expectation and opinion. It's also the goal of the system, is that griefing is not a viable option or play style. And as a result of that desire for the system, we will fine tune it in such a way through testing that that outcome is achieved. And that is the intent and purpose of the design.
In summary, players who tend to enjoy PvE should not be concerned about the PvP if they so choose to avoid the in-game PvP game loops and just want to tend to their farms. This is something they should and will be able to do. Corruption, in my mind, will be limited, as the penalties associated with becoming a murder hobo are just not worth it. Now, players will certainly try, and they're going to try to game the system. However, I'm confident that Intrepid will continue to take a hard stance on such actions and make life for the corrupted very difficult. My concern is so little about their corruption system that I'll even go as far as I'm actually concerned for the lack of work for bounty hunters. So, if you're a PvEer, grab your gardening tools and bag of seeds. PvE players unite and join the world of Vera, having comfort and knowledge in knowing Ashes of Creation is not a gank box. If you're still watching after this 20-minute video, first I'd like to say thank you. And if you liked the video, consider hitting that like and subscribe. It's free and it'll really help my channel being new. Also, I'd love to hear your comments about these topics, because these are some important topics, and if you have some thoughts on it, I want to hear it, and I'm sure Intrepid does too. If you're looking for a community to join and you're bored, come stop by the Discord at the Hidden Dagger Inn. Also, you can catch me at Twitch TV every Saturday and soon much more in the summer as I stream at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Anything Ashes. Thank you, Vera, and have a great day.
Work complete.